Hi everyone, welcome back to Babbling Irons. So today we're going to talk around West Ham's victory over Luton Town. So Sloth, West Ham are on a bit of a roll at the moment. We have now secured 3 consecutive wins. And yeah, we've put the ball in the back of net more often than not. So it's a great place to be, us having 9 points from the last 3 games, currently 10 points over the season so far, obviously 4 games in. But it's a promising start and probably one that I don't think many of us thought we would have.
Yeah, I think we've certainly got something to smile about at the moment. It's not the negativity of last season, but I think the manner in which we've played has been something that's been discussed quite a lot. Quite a lot of people aren't happy with the lack of possession, or say the fact that we sit so deep. And you know, I think if you want us to be playing entertaining football, it's like we've said many times, it's moments.
Yeah.
And it's moments of entertainment. And you know, the Brighton win was fantastic. If you weren't entertained by that, then you're not really in my opinion, you're not really a West Ham fan. You're a football fan. You want pure football. You don't appreciate the fact that
right, we found the solution in which to not expose ourselves against the Zebre. And yes, it was
exactly.
Yeah,
it's a case of, you know, they're our bogey team. So if you're a West Ham fan, you should want us to beat them regardless. Get that one to bed. And coming into this Luton game, I'll be honest, I did expect us to win. Not convincingly, because obviously our past with Luton and, you know, going away to newly promoted sides, it's West Ham. So I was kind of expecting a 2-1, but I do think that we could have scored more. They could have quite easily nicked something at the end. Obviously, they were denied a penalty, and we'll talk about why I don't think it was a penalty later on, or why it wasn't given. But also, I think it's just, we were just saying the kind of black dog in the background of Manchester City. We've got these games out of the way, and we're like, oh God, this has gone well. So I'm expecting something bad to happen. So when Manchester City are there, you're kind of thinking, oh no, they've just won 5-1. What's going to happen to us?
All a hat trick.
Yeah.
No, but before we get into anything about City, which we may touch on at the end, but before we even get into the game, you know, let's start as we always do. You know, let's review the lineups as well for the game. So it was pretty much as we were from the last one. I wasn't expecting much change. Obviously, Aged came in for a Bonner. Ben Rama kept his place, obviously, with Souček, who picked up his head injury. Obviously, the thing we always talk about is the average age thing, but there's been steps this summer in which to do that. Our overall squad age has dropped, and that's very promising. That's a really good thing to see. And obviously, once we see someone like Kudus as well, that will drop it down a touch. So there are some positives in that respect. And from the lineup point of view, I was pretty happy with it. As many times we and others have said, if you're winning, there's no need to change your lineup. We had a very convincing and very good win against Brighton. Again, I think this was another case as you don't change your winning formula. And when you look at statistically, maybe we didn't create as much clear-cut chances as Luton did. However, we've done what we've been doing and we've been clinical, and that is the absolute kind of best thing we can hope for. And you know, this was a game where we had possession, something that, as you say, many I guess football purists within the fan base have been saying they want to see more possession. And we had it against Luton. However, something we spoke about many times, Sloth, is that we don't necessarily, not that we don't have the players to break teams down, we maybe don't have the tactical setup that necessarily does allow us to expose teams as much as others. We constantly say, because we concentrate on those moments and set pieces, we sometimes maybe don't have the necessary patterns of play. However, there were some really nice passages in what we did against Luton. And what was your initial thoughts when you saw the lineup? Did it kind of give you some confidence? Did you kind of expect? What did you expect from Luton as well when you saw how their system and how they're set up?
I think it was like when I saw the lineup, it was a bit more confidence. It was the fact that I know we're going to have pace at the back with Aguerd there. So I know they've got their big man up top, and having Kurt Zouma and a bit of pace around him. Aguerd's a big unit as well. So two centre-backs who are quite well equipped to deal with that, and then also the covering of Alvarez in front. And I think we looked a lot more solid. We looked comfortable moving the ball around, and I got a sense that we would try and sort of play out from the backs with Aguerd starting. And Ogbonna was fantastic for the game that he came in, but there are some limitations to his game in that sense. And I think when we've got someone like Aguerd who's more willing to play those long balls and try passes that may not necessarily come off, you get a bit more of an insight into the fact that we're probably going to look to catch teams out quite quickly and use the width of the pitch. I know Luton's got a very small pitch. It's the smallest in the Prem, if I remember.
Yeah, it's this spot. I think they said it was like up to 4 meters shorter or in width, I believe, than what it is at London Stadium. So again, it's very compact. It's like the old Highbury. That was an incredibly compact pitch, and Arsenal were exceptional playing on it because they knew how to play within those bounds, as whereas other teams tended to struggle because they allowed you to suffocate. And I think at times Luton did that quite well. They didn't suffocate us on the ball, but they suffocated the space in front of their defence, and it made it really difficult for us to find anyone between the lines because there were just really no gaps in there. It didn't really seem to kind of open up until we saw Paqueta move out more to the left-hand side, which then in turn allowed Benrahma kind of came inside a little bit more. And then obviously Emerson with his overlapping runs. I felt we didn't really seem to have much joy until, whether that be a tactical change, whether that be a decision by Paqueta, regardless of who made that decision, it was the right decision in the game to make, because all of a sudden we started to create these overloads in that left-hand side and expose essentially a channel that they consistently try to kind of come down, and we managed to do pretty well, I think, in actually starting to create some kind of spaces and some gaps. And Paqueta had some wonderful moments, especially in that first half when dropping out into that left-hand side, I thought.
Yeah, I think one thing that was really clear was the difference in quality between the midfields. And particularly when you looked at players like Alvarez and Paqueta, they just were a level above, well, not to be mean, but maybe 2 levels above Luton Town, particularly Paqueta. Like he some of his work rate, but also just ability on the ball. He was just kind of playing with the with their centre mids, with the opposition at times, and kind of making.
At one point, he sent him round in circles, to come away with the ball. It was at times he was brilliant to watch again.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the key areas for us. As we were kind of saying about that left-hand side, I do think that there's something about Benrahma that I just find he will cause problems, but he just nullifies himself. I don't know if it's his decision making, but I think it's the lack of maybe confidence from what we've seen from when he was coming up with Brentford, and he was part of that BMW attack. Yeah. He just looks a bit toothless in comparison to what we've seen previously, and even maybe last season.
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of rigidity in how we play, and he's such a vital instrument for us in terms of build up. And I know people will turn around and maybe question that, but what I would suggest is watch the Luton game and also watch how many times we came down that right hand side and Sufa had to turn to go inside. Now, one of our greatest strengths is Bowen and his goal scoring and Bowen's kind of movement in that final third. But also one of our great weaknesses is the fact that he does come in field so often that we tend to actually struggle to build down that right-hand side because he's trying to get into central attacking positions and we don't necessarily have a midfielder who has been intelligent enough to come over. Now, Ward-Prowse does it slightly, but we probably need him a lot more to come over into that space when Bowen does come inside. And I think that's something we're going to develop as we go ahead. You could see Ward-Prowse doing it a bit more as the game went on, but it's something that I think does at times hinder us because we have to then be very lopsided in our approach and we have to create those overloads on that side because Bowen, quite rightly, is trying to come inside with Antonio to score. So it's a strength and a weakness I find for us when we're looking to build up, especially against teams like Luton who restrict in space. We're not able to stretch the game maybe as much as we want to. However, I think the way that Alvarez kept slotting into the back, well, essentially the back four, dropping in and making it a back three, allows Soufal to push up higher. Obviously, allows Emerson. But yeah, what would you say? What signing so far Alvarez is looking to be? He's allowing and doing the things that we said, dropping into that back four, to allowing the fullbacks to be more aggressive, to allowing those fullbacks, centre backs to split. And it's nice, something that we've been talking about consistently over the summer of why he would be good, actually coming to fruition. And it's starting to pay dividends, I think, from a defensive point of view, and also was integral into the first goal as well.
Well, he just looks fantastic, doesn't he? He's also, I mean, I mentioned on our video about him, you know, he will do things that West Ham fans love. And that challenge in the second half, you know, that's exactly the sort of thing that gets fans out of their seats.
Every single West Ham fan, when he makes that challenge, he gets the ball. Like everyone's just screaming, "He won the ball! He won the ball!"
Yeah, it was one of those where I think he's been sensational coming in, and as we said, you know, many times last season, the issue was kind of that there was no one to drop back, and it created these spaces, and it was one of the things that I was a bit worried about Ward-Prowse coming in, because I think Southampton had that similar issue when if Lavia was going forward or trying to cover, it would create a huge space in the middle, and Alvarez just nullifies that sort of risk because he's so happy to drop deep. But when he's on the ball, he's incredibly composed and he's happy to just, you know, either pick a pass and play it or carry it a little bit, maybe take his time. And I think West Ham fans of old will know that, you know, when someone is in that position just in front of the back three, the last thing that we want is for them to be playing around on the ball, because we just think, oh God, like this is gonna cause
we've seen Souček be a last man in midfield and pass it directly to the opposition. Let's get counters.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he just looks so composed, and I think having someone who's happy to do that and also gets forward a fair bit as well. You know, we saw him even hit a few shots, which I know I sound like a child's football coach almost. So he had a few goes, he had a few tries, but you know, it's from someone who you expect to be just sitting in front of the back four.
It's also the thing that many of our fans were calling up with Paulinho. It's a defensive midfielder who gets on the edge and looks to have a shot, and we've got, in my opinion, a younger, potentially to be better version than Paulinho. And I think that, again, the little kind of link-up play that he had, particularly on our goal, was impressive to obviously then, and Paqueta's movement to get himself on that inside left, using Emerson, run as a diversion, and then what a ball into the box, and a great header from Bowen. A big mistake from the goalkeeper, let's be honest, but brilliant little move. You know, again, Alvarez integral to that. Paqueta, by taking that responsibility, whether that's Moyes saying to do it or him taking that opportunity himself. Brilliant kind of movement from him to be in that space and to kind of exploit And again, as we said, great strength and weakness is Bowen looking to kind of come in and play off Antonio. Again, when it works, it is brilliant. And it's working this season. Bowen's been absolutely on fire. This is the thing we criticised him about last year. He's doing it when he goes missing, or I say missing, but when he's not in that right-hand side, because he's doing that kind of movement to kind of get himself more central. When he's not scoring goals, it can become a hindrance because we're lacking someone on that side to help us progress play. But when he's scoring, as he is at the moment, and he's creating opportunities, long may it continue, because it is a brilliant asset to have. But yeah, what are your thoughts on kind of Bowen? And we'll talk about someone else, and someone we've both maligned for much of the summer, but he deserves a shout out, so we'll do that in a bit. But how are you feeling about kind of Bowen and what he's doing at the moment?
I think he's performing to the level that I think we both wanted him to perform at. And, we were just saying there's just a few things about his game at the moment that they just aren't quite paying off, particularly last season. And I'm hoping that scoring that goal in the final was that turning point. He looks so much more confident on the ball, and he's happier to take shots. He's more confident running at players as well. And I think in terms of his overall play, we saw quite a few links with top sides across the summer and particularly towards the back end of last season. But I do think that if he keeps this up, he will be not only in serious contention for the England squads, which he already should be, but he will probably be on a few shopping lists for some of the big sides. And
probably certainly what they've read, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I think we've really got to look at that, and whether it's just a case of trying to maximize what he's doing and maybe being a bit more comfortable playing him up top, utilizing his sort of his pace and ability on the ball, or whether it's being a bit more comfortable with him, as we said, tucking inside more, understanding that someone's going to have to peel out to that right hand side and cover more. I think we just got to get the best out of him, because at the moment he's performing fantastically.
Yeah. And just in fact, there's probably two players that have been quite maligned by us recently. One being Mikel Antonio. Over last season, we were both very critical of him. Again, I think because we had very high standards that we wanted him to kind of meet and fulfill, because he had been giving us very high standards for 2 years, and it dropped off, in my opinion, and obviously I know in your opinion as well. And a player that we're both concerned about, we never necessarily doubted his ability, but we doubted how much he will bring to West Ham in terms of overall quality. In Ward-Prowse, he's been a revelation in the midfield. He's already got a goal, he's got 3 assists. I think the first player to get 3 assists, across their first 3 games. Again, he got an assist in the game, but we'll touch on that assist later on. But I felt he's playing the most forward player in terms of our defensive press, because of that energy it has, and it's allowing Paqueta to kind of come deep and to have a bit more of a free roam, I feel, is what it's been as allowing Paqueta to do. So 100% fair play to Moyes, because that little dynamic is really working, because you have, as you've said many times, that screen of Alvarez, we then got Ward-Prowse to be our forward press, and that kind of allows Paqueta to be a bit looser in his defensive kind of responsibilities, even though I think he ended up with 8 tackles, which was the most of any player on the pitch in the game. Again, it's incredible the work he goes through, and from an attacking point of view, again, it gives him that freedom to be where we need him to be. And I thought in the second half we were a much better team, and had it not been for a marginal offside, it was a phenomenal piece of work from Antonio. Absolutely pinned. I think it was Reece Burke, laid it off to Emerson. Unfortunately for us, instead of it being 2-0, it was still 1-1. But I think in that second half, we stepped up a bit more. We kind of pushed Luton to make mistakes, I felt, and we were kind of pouncing on them, but we lacked, I think at times, that cutting edge. I think that's probably epitomised by our low XG count, but I do think we lacked maybe just that little bit of cut and thrust we needed to really put into the sword in the second half at times.
Well, I think in the second half as well, we saw that a player who is very maligned at the moment, and in my opinion, rightly so. When Danny Ings was introduced, he just completely nullified the attack. He did a couple of nice things, and a couple of decent turns, or kept the ball quite well. But aside from that, he just offers so little in terms of our attack. He doesn't fit the game plan. He doesn't have the pace that's needed at this level, or in this system in particular, which is the worrying thing.
Would you say, Sloth, that you would prefer to see Mubama? Do you feel that 100%. He is
That's exactly what I was going to say, and it's frustrating for me. I think part of the reason that I am quite as annoyed by it as I am is because I want Mubama to be getting minutes. If we've stopped him going out on loan specifically to give him minutes, then we need to be playing him. And chucking him on against Luton in the 60th minute, or giving him the time at the end of the game to really just run defences ragged and fit the system, is surely the best place you can play your youngster.
We've seen in the past, we've held players back on loan, if not turning them out on loan. I believe Ashby was one, as well as Eji Elise. We held them back and then refused to play them throughout that period despite defensive injuries. You don't, again, like you say, you don't want to see the same happen to Mubama. We're keeping him basically just because we need squad numbers, as opposed to, him having legitimate means in which to be on the pitch, and you just kind of imploring him to get the chance. I do feel he will score goals if he's put out there, and he seems the most, within our strike force, he's the most natural successor to Antonio. Lacks the physical build, arguing in terms of muscle, but everything else about him is, you would argue, the archetypal Moyes centre forward, surely.
Well, he's still young, and that sort of muscular frame will come with a couple of years of training. I think it's difficult for me to quite understand the decision making. The only thing that I can think of in terms of throwing Ings on is that he is proven at this level.
This is the experience, right? He maybe the assumption that he'll see out a game or help us see out a game because of his experience.
But we've got enough experience in this squad. If you're telling me that Kurt Zouma, Areola, and even players like Bowen, I know he's still relatively young, but someone like Bowen and players like Paqueta don't have enough experience when they've played at the highest level there is in the game. I just don't really buy that. I don't see what Danny Ings brings to that fold over them, if that's not being too disrespectful to Danny.
I think it's fine. It's an opinion, right? That's often what I think people confuse, is that opinions can't be wrong because it's your opinion. There are certain things that can be wrong by proving through statistical analysis, etc. But there are, I think, in some cases, if a personal feeling is a personal feeling, and I agree. I don't necessarily feel that Danny Ings brings enough to the table to West Ham to warrant him playing over Mubama, apart from he has experience. That arguably Mubama has a better goals to minutes ratio than Danny Ings in a West Ham shirt. I know, but
I think we need to see him getting minutes on the pitch. And if it's a case of he comes on and he looks like a deer in the headlights, then yeah, fair enough. I think everyone would say yes, that then bring Ings on, let him settle in and let him get that confidence. But it's also when you have Cornet as well, and you have that player who can play up top and fits the physical profile and is rapid, so could potentially play the system, that you're still not picking them. And it just kind of makes me think that you're willing to change the entire outlet up top for something that doesn't quite work or is a big gamble. And for me, it invited a lot of pressure onto us. And, we're lucky we were playing Luton Town, because I think if we'd been playing someone better, then we would have probably been talking about coming away with a point as opposed to.
Let's face it, we come right under the cosh against Brighton, and on any other day, and based on any other season, that easily would have ended up 3-3 in that game with how kind of deep we got. And in this one against obviously Luton, we got obviously what ultimately ended up being the winner from another superb set piece from Ward-Prowse. Let's face it, he is possibly one of the world's best. I think saw today Soufal compare him and his essentially ball ability or passing ability to Pirlo, which is quite a statement. But I can understand because, you know, especially when we talk about set pieces, if you need it to go on a particular spot, he puts it there. And I think someone who was, if anyone deserved to get the winner, for me, it was Zouma. I think he was absolutely imperious for the entire game. He was incredible defending our box, defending aerial balls, you know, and Luton are not an easy team to defend in that case. You've got obviously both centre forwards are real physical units. And, you know, we've said this before and it is slightly disparaging, but real honest players. They will work you hard. And I think he looked to be absolutely relishing it for the entire game. And what a brilliant header from him, I thought, and for me deserved to be the guy who got us that winner.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a captain or that decision's up in the air, then you've got to lead by example, and he did exactly that. You know, he put in a captain's performance, and he wasn't bullied at all by whether it was Adebayo or their other. Whether it was Morris, then I think he just completely controlled so much of the game. Whether it was in the air, I think he won pretty much everything he went up for. He was so dominant, and then when it came to playing on the ground, he just looked calm, cool as a cucumber. You know, it was coolness personified, really. And as you said, for his goal, the leap is great. And the Luton defending was slightly ropey, but I think
we took in a couple of good blocks, though, to be fair. So they did lose the man, but it was good attacking. Yeah. We put blocks in place to get Zouma completely free. I think when you've got that size of a man as well, leaping with that leap, I don't think you're going to stop him. So no, I think if he continues playing and performing like this, then he is going to be the captain going forward, in my opinion, because he's playing like a captain, he's playing like a leader, and really setting the tone for the side going forward. Yeah, I think obviously we were largely in control, I think, at that point. Luton kept knocking at the door, but I think they were knocking at the door in terms of putting pressure on, getting balls into the box, having, you know, a litany of shots, not really any of any note. I think the one time we switched off, they obviously got their goal. The player on Again's shoulder, who again was winning everything, and he sometimes does struggle when we are against a lot of kind of long ball kind of play, but I thought he was really good. But yeah, the one time we switched off as a team, it gets headed back across, and I think it says centre back Anderson was the recipient of putting the ball in the back of net. And you know, that should have been it. We should have been able to close it out. Should have been really comfortable with him. We had a slight moment of panic with obviously the Ward-Prowse one. I don't personally think it was a penalty. He's jumping up. His arms are up. I know you've got another point that I'm not going to step on, so I can tell you to go through. But I don't think his arms were in a position where he's naturally kind of looking to extend his arms out. I think the problem is, though, the rule is so ridiculous at the moment. It's so difficult now to kind of really pinpoint what it is, what isn't. I think it may be the right call, but we've seen it given. But what was your take on that last minute flutter in the heart?
I think it's frustrating because, you know, we would know if that's in Europe that gets given. And so all we want is a bit of clarity and consistency as well. And, you know, I do feel a little bit sorry for Luton fans with this. The only thing that I would say is that there is a very clear shirt pull on Ward-Prowse in that passage of play, and that's in my opinion the only reason it's not given, is because, you know, he clearly gets his shirt pulled, and if you're looking to give a foul, then you'd have to give that foul because it happens first.
Yeah.
So it kind of negates the handball. So that would be what I think is the reason it wasn't given, as opposed to going off this strange, incredibly inconsistent handball law that they seem to apply. Yeah, they seem to apply whenever it kind of tickles their fancy at the moment. And I mean, they do that with all the laws. Just look at the City game yesterday. Yeah. It seems to just be whenever floats their boat that they we'll do this now. And unfortunately for sides like Luton and Fulham, it seems to be the bigger clubs that get these decisions. Now, whether West Ham fans want to take that as a positive, describing ourselves as a bigger club, but I do think that, as I said, that it's kind of null and void almost, because if you give the handball, you have to give the shirt pull in the build up, and whilst it's one of those where someone might say it happens 100 times a game, it's irrelevant really. It's still a foul. And if you're going to go by the letter of the law and give a handball, which, you know, Ward-Prowse has got his arms up by his side basically, then you have to be a stickler as well and say there's a shirt pull. So yeah, while it was a bit flappy, I kind of I saw that and pointed it out to my dad, and he was like, yeah, what are they going to do? Because I think unfortunately at the moment there's no trust in officials that they're going to be consistent, or they're going to be fair, or even apply the laws. Mm-hmm. So that was my take on their penalty shout. I think it would be one of those where if it's against you, you're probably going,
I want that. Yeah.
You're blowing steam for ages. But I think it's the correct call.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not just from a West Ham point of view. I think I'd be agreed that was given as a penalty in any game. You tend to watch it and go, that's going to be a penalty. It doesn't mean you agree with it, but it felt like they were going to give it. But fortunately for us, they didn't. We saw the game out. We won it 2-1. So with that in mind, Sloth, who was your man in the match for the game against Luton?
Zouma. Yeah, I think he was quality. And we've already alluded to it. He just dominated everything, and we knew that Luton were going to be up for it. We knew that their centre forwards are big, physical, and they would be given 100%. He made it look easy. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. I think that those guys gave Zouma a tough game, and he gave just as tough a game back. Fair play to Luton. They made it really difficult for us throughout the whole 90 minutes. I think they will struggle for the course of the season, but their home form is going to be vitally important. If they can get a win in one of their next two games, particularly at home, then I think that's their chance of staying up. But, you know, they gave us a really good battle. Ultimately, I think the extra skill and extra level of quality we had came to the fore. It's nice to see Kudus come out, even for 5 minutes. He did show his pace in one example as well, which was great to see. So, and I think we're going to see more of that, hopefully, in our next game as well against City. But yeah, 2-1 victory, 3 wins on the bounce, currently in Champions League positions at this very early stage, but 30 points to go before we can start to even think about anything kind of fun. That's my mindset. You need to get 30 more points, and then we can start to dream and to talk about, you know, Europa League, Europa Conference, or even Champions League at an absolute stretch. But it's been a fantastic start, one that we probably didn't anticipate, and long may it continue. So yeah, everyone, thanks for watching. If you do like, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe if you do not subscribe. And one last thing to do before we go, Sloth, and that is come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.